9K to 104K equity uplift. Surely you can't add that much value that cheap.
This is instant equity after 2 or 3 weeks.
This episode, together with architect and founder of Insighto, who has built his own $14 million property portfolio, Oliver Cheung, walks us through adding value by adding a wall to create another bedroom to slingshot your portfolio's growth for a tiny cost.
Identifying space in an asset, making a change, it will detract that buyer appeal. On paper, it might seem super simple, right? You ready for the grand reveal?
Whether you're converting a property you already own or making sure you secure the right floor plan to do this on your next purchase, this episode's a must for anyone wanting to scale their portfolio.
So low risk. You're not opening a bathroom, you're not demolishing a kitchen. It's one of the easiest entry level with...
We're talking value adds, but we're talking pretty big value adds with a pretty small cost. Putting in walls to add a bedroom to a property. Now, whilst you can't obviously do this with every floor plan, there are certain ones that this lends itself to much better than the others. But you've done a whole bunch of research. We're going to be going through all the details. But is there anything you want to set the stage with before we start really going into this episode, mate?
I would say it's a most effective value add for an entry-level investor who's never done a cosmetic renovation or who has that anxiety of what am I going to find behind hidden walls. We're not tearing kitchens apart. We're not tearing bathrooms apart. All we're doing is identifying space in an asset where you can get a chippy, a plasterer, a painter in, and that's where the magic will happen.
And you're adding in, because even like taking out a wall, sometimes there's, like you're saying, there's this huge knock-on effect of or structural, and then what about the gap in the flooring? Now you're going to need to redo that. Whereas this is a lot more straightforward, but there's still a lot of steps that people need to understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, look, why don't we go into this? So first of all, it's the build. Next, it's the equity uplift, but then also the rental increase, because there's a few different prongs in this. So did you want to start with the actual build and talk a little bit more high level about the process?
So the process comes first and foremost at Suburb research level, right? Of really identifying particular markets where there's enough of a disparity between 2-bed to a 3-bed or even a 3-bed to a 4-bed, but also the quality of stock of housing supply that has that ability to take these floor plans into a value add, right, of adding the bedrooms in.
Can you, because I know you got a few comps here, and I might be skipping ahead a little bit too much, but is there a floor plan that you can sort of share with us so we can see a little bit more about what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and if you're on iTunes or Spotify, head on over to the YouTube channel. So it's going to be brought to life a little bit more visually with what Oliver's talking about. Yeah, what have you got here, mate?
Here what we have is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, laundry room and a kitchen. Right? We've got 2 living spaces, a study nook and a dining space. What we've particularly identified is the living space on the northwest side of this floor plan is providing a very nice, simple opportunity to add a wall in there. And the reason why I say that, if we're looking at the size of that living space, it's a 3.5 by 3.4 space, which is approximately the same size of the 2 existing rooms towards the north side of the floor plan.
I feel like that was originally a bedroom. Like that just feels so perfect for this. And not only that, but you're not forgoing a dining room. You're not smushing a 4th bedroom into like a 100 square meter house that clearly shouldn't be 4 bedrooms.
Yep.
This looks like it's like proper lends itself to it.
Correct. But also that's where the key is, right? There's making a change, but ensuring that the change is still going to result into a fully functioning 4-bedroom. But also understanding the demographics and the type of household is living in a 4x2. In most instances, it's a couple, growing family where they need the space to be in a 4x2. And the last thing you want to do is provide a 4x2, which does a proto opposite of it. So particularly in this floor plan, you've got a decent spot for the dining room, you still have a decent sized living room, and you do have a breakout space, which is effectively that study nook. Hence why this plan is really ticking all the right boxes to move it into a 4x2.
And whilst a big component of this is like the equity uplift side of things, really the other really big bonus is, and the rental side, which we're going to get to in a minute, but if you need to rent a 3-bedder, you can rent a 4. But if you need to rent a 4, you can't really rent a 3. So all of a sudden you've just opened up this whole new section of the market as far as demand is concerned as well.
Absolutely right.
As far as actually understanding the market. This is what you were talking about, and then I distracted us with floor plans and stuff. Making sure that there is that demand, that price gap between the 2s and 3s, 3s and 4s, etc. Can you sort of open that up a little bit more on what you've done?
Yeah, so what we've done here is we've understood the demographics of who's living in a 4x2, right? Particularly in this pocket of Melton, right? We're in a specific suburb of Kurrajong, where it's a really growing family appeal type of both at tenant level, but also at owner-occupier level. And the reason why I stress at owner-occupier level, ultimately when it's going to come time to sell, you want to make sure that the asset that you're making improvements to is actually matching the local owner-occupier demographic appeal in the next 5, in the next 10 years. And we all know Melton, Kurrajong per se, is an emerging, growing family household type of appeal. And this is exactly what this asset type of this home that we've selected is suiting to that future demand, but addressing that short-term rental demand at the same time too.
And so is this a data play, a local on the ground talk to agents play, a mixture? Like how are you really putting all this info together?
It starts with a data research play, which is then supported by the on-the-ground observation of understanding foot traffic coming through the door at both a rental appeal, but also at an owner-occupier appeal.
Gotcha. So you've identified there's demand. You can see that, okay, this is actually going to work from an owner-occupier level and a renter's level. Now, what about the price gap? How are you looking at this to go, this is worth it, or nah, would waste of time?
So we're looking at what 3 bedrooms is selling for within current market dynamics, and then we're looking at what 4 bedrooms is selling for. That's where it's ticking all the right boxes across. But also, we are then making sure at a more granular level, the type of 3 bedroom that we are picking up to do these type of projects is actually going to turn into a proper 4x2, because I've got no doubt you sell for everyone out there listening. We've all walked through 4x2s or even 3 bedrooms where you can see that
clearly not.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying don't force this. Like it either works or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, just move on and find one that works.
And if you're forcing this, in most instances, it will do the total opposite. It will detract families. It will detract that buyer appeal when it comes down to sell, right? At the rental market stage, it's a little bit more forgiving, particularly where vacancy rates are quite low. But long-term wise, you will have buyer feedback coming through saying this was forced. It's not a proper functioning 4-bedroom. Living spaces are now too tight. I can't put my 6-seater couch. I can't put a 8-seater dining table. Room. I can't actually even get a king size or a double size bed for the kids who are moving from kids to teenage years.
I don't know if it's true, but I heard that in London, they actually have staging furniture that is like fake furniture that's actually all slightly smaller than a single bed and slightly smaller than a double. So then when they put it in the room, people are like, oh, wow, this looks great. Like, and your bed doesn't fit.
And I would say it's very typical here too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you've done your research. You've looked at the area. You've gone, cool. This actually matches. There's enough of a price gap between a 3 and a 4, if that's what you're doing, taking it from a 3 to a 4. You know, the floor plan actually like fits this. You're not trying to put a round peg in a square hole or whatever. Actually, is that reversed? You put the square one in.
It could be.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. You're putting the right peg in the right hole. So as far as costings are concerned, can you give me a little bit of a high level, like a little bit of who you need, but just like what they're going to cost to actually pull this off?
Yep. So key trades: chippy, plastero, sparky, painter, carpet layer. 5 key trades.
Yep.
Starting with the carpentry works, that's generally about $3,000. You're then moving to your plasterer, who's going to be about $2,000. From there on, you're getting your electrician for lights, GPO, smoke alarm compliance, generally about your $1,500 on average, right? Again, subject to how many lights you want to put, how many GPOs you want to be putting. Carpet, generally there's an allowance of about $650 per room. And then from there on, painters coming in. From past experience, it's about $2,000 plus or minus around there. The overall cost was $9,655.
It's $9,650. And this is also the thing, is depending on where you are in the country, if you've got a mate that's a builder, if you're like, this might get a little bit more expensive, it might get a little bit cheaper, but I like the way that you've broken this down because it's even including like the blinds. Yes. Like, because it's like, yeah, we're going to need curtains in the bedroom. There's everything to it, not just putting a wall up. Let's now talk about the uplift. Because $9,000 in, not a huge amount of money, but still a significant amount of money. What are we adding?
Okay, you ready for the grand reveal? The comparable sales 4x2, similar floor plan, similar floor size,
Yeah.
similar land size, recently sold Feb of 2026
Yeah.
for $675,000.
675. And now when you say similar as well, there's one thing I want to clarify. It doesn't have to be like if it's 150, it doesn't have to be exactly 150. You're talking about what, 10, 20 square meters,
Yes.
but don't take the mickey and compare a 180 square meter with like a 100 square meter.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So a bit of variation, acceptable.
Yep.
And I feel like this is just like put your realistic hat on. Like,
Yeah, look, and I'm happy to show you the floor plan in comparison side by side. And
actually,
we
let's
can-
do
yeah.
that. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, so we've got one on the left is obviously the wall that we added.
Mhm.
One on the right is what sold recently in Feb for 675,000.
So you're not comparing it to something that's drastically different. Whilst there's differences with these floor plans, they look like they're pretty negligible. And as far as condition, land size, because obviously there's a few other comps that need to be comparative.
Yeah, that is pretty much a very close comparison. I would say the floor plan is a little bit smaller, right? The reason why I say that, what we're looking at, the comparable, it has really a lounge and a dining/living space combined together with no breakout space of that study nook, which ours offered to. So yeah, that's where I'm seeing minor tweaks in differences across there, but besides that, very much comparable.
And even if the valuer did come through, this is obviously provided you are doing it for an equity redraw, you're not selling it. Realistically, even if they shaved a little bit off, I'm pretty sure the numbers you're about to show are pretty. Actually, I've just realized the title of this episode. I don't think the numbers are grand reveal, but it's like even if they shaved a bit off, and it's like you didn't actually get the full like 100 for uplift. It's like, oh, damn, I only got like 70K. It's $9,000 going in. And this is also a project that you're talking about. We haven't even got to the rental value add. That realistically, what's this taking? Anywhere between like 2 and 4 weeks? Like, and if you've got contacts, you can probably even get it done quicker.
We generally aim for about 3-week turnaround with a couple of days of buffer in there. But realistically, this can happen in 2 weeks. If you've got all your trades lined up, if you're buying your carpet, if you're getting all on day one, ready to pull the trigger and line up your trades one after the other, this can be executed in 2 weeks.
Love this, Oliver. All right, so let's talk about the numbers.
I'm excited by this, right? Because you can see the complexity of what is involved in there. It is so low risk. You're not opening a bathroom. You're not demolishing a kitchen where that opens up a whole different can of worms, as you would very much know. It's one of the easiest entry level with maximum return, even better than paint, even better than carpet floor finishes.
You and I were talking about this as well. I remember like the last reno project and just saying exactly that. I think you and I were standing in the bathroom, and if you haven't seen it, awesome bathroom episode where Oliver was actually like coming in and out at different stages of it, giving tips and tricks. It was really, really good. But like standing in it when it's just like floor joists, I think we both fell in at a few stages.
Yeah.
But basically, I think this was off air, and you were just saying how like it is pretty intimidating for a lot of people. Like if you haven't done it before, it's especially when you're watching like the outgoings start piling up. But this, like you're saying, man, it's the exact opposite. Like you're not ripping everything back. You're not seeing the skeleton. You're just kind of adding.
Yep.
And you're doing it in a way that's quick as well. That's a big part of it.
But also, to put that in perspective, it will cost you about 8 to 10K these days to internally paint a home. Is that a fair statement to say?
Yeah.
And the uplift of painting a home in terms of proportionate 9K in to 104K out, you're not going to see this in paint. So this has boosted a lot more in terms of your return on investment. Challenge here is finding these homes with the right floor plan that you can deliver on.
So I was just about to say that this isn't something like we said at the very beginning that you want to apply to everything, because if you apply it to the wrong property, it is going to devalue it.
Yep.
All right, man. So as far as the equity uplift, you're estimating
104.
That's so good. Like, and now let's talk rentals. So now all of a sudden you've opened up this whole different rental market of people that are like, I can't rent a 3-bedder. Cool. We're a 4-bedder now. What are we talking as far as rental uplift?
In that particular market, 3-bedders generally go, depending on the quality of the 3-bed, will go for anywhere from 410 to about 430 plus or minus thereabouts there.
Mm-hmm.
In the context of a 4-bed, again, similar caveat to that, we're transacting away from your 490 to about low fives.
All right, so at the time of recording, we're essentially talking about around a $70-ish,
Yes.
again, give or take 10, 20 bucks. So what we're looking at then, what is that, $70 a week? That's like $4,000 a year. So this has got like a 50-ish% ROI to it.
If we look at it from this perspective.
Just from cash flow, not even looking at it equity, because then it's to the moon. But if we're looking at it from like, how long is this going to take for me to get my money back? Roughly 2 years.
Yeah, I wouldn't even see it that way. I would even push that across where this is instant equity after 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep.
And a market that is moving is extracting it out to potentially a deposit for your next home or your next investment. This is where the return is. And if you're then buying in a market that is growing at 10, 11% in a hotspot, this is where you return. I wouldn't even blink an eye if your cash flow was only increased by $10 or $20 per week, because it's the opportunity cost of being able to manufacture that growth on your terms, when you want, where you want it, regardless of market conditions.
I think I just look at the cash flow because I know where you've chosen, and I know that it's an area that's not exactly known for amazing rental yields, but there's a lot of opportunity there. So I think that's, my mind always just jumps to, how's this going to improve serviceability? But you're right, on the bigger picture side of things, $9,000 to $104,000, the focus is on the equity. Like that, you're right. But the fact that it has this double knock-on effect to it, that it's also increasing your cash flow as well, which means when you go back to the broker and say, hey, how much can I borrow now, Mr. or Mrs. Broker? They're going to give you a much better story, both for this awesome equity uplift and then your increased cash flow as well.
But particularly, Todd, what is even more exciting about this, if you look at who this type of project suits, I would say it's typically going to your first-time investor, where they've worked hard, they've saved that 20% deposit over 2, 3, 4 years, however it's taken. They've purchased their first investment. They are literally $0 in that bank account because all of the deposit's gone into that first purchase. They're eager, they're hungry, they want to be able to generate a 20% uplift in any market they choose without waiting. So this is then getting them in their next purchase within a couple of months.
Man, I love this. Is there any other final words of wisdom or anything else you wanted to wrap into this one today, Oliver, before we part ways? Because I know it's a slice and I'm pretty sure we've already gone over time, but watch this one again. If you're in the demographic that Oliver's just talked about, actually, even if you're outside of it and you're just looking for the next deal, this could potentially be a very small lever that then makes a really huge movement over the other side of your portfolio. But anyway, I realized I just asked you a question. I kept talking. Is there anything else you want to add to this one, mate?
This is one where your patience is going to be tested. The fear of you should not let the fear of missing out override yourself. But also with these significant returns, if you're trying to buy in a market that is moving, even if you're slightly overpaying a little bit, you would see the returns come through a lot faster.
Love it. Oliver Cheung from Insighto, thank you so much for jumping on the show, man.
No problem at all. On to the next hunt.